Hello, well, we're going to look at this right realist 40 marker. It's incredibly narrow and came up under the old spec, but I think it's important we look at it last year. So in 2023, it was left realism. So evaluate right realist explanations of crime. It's got explanations, which tells us we really need to focus on a usefulness, but the explanations of how they explain both crime and deviance. So we know it's a usefulness. So I would note, first of all, I'd do the paragraphs and then I'll come back for the introduction. So paragraph 1, we're going to note that Murray argued that the underclass are responsible for a rise in crime. So the underclass are responsible for a rise in crime, and they are a distinguishable group. So the underclass are responsible for a rise in crime, and they're a distinguishable group with their own deviant values and a counterculture. Responsible for a rise in crime and their own deviant values with a counterculture where marriage is separate from childbearing, acquiring money is separate from work, and men prove their masculinity through violence. There's a counterculture, deviant subcultural values, and the deviant subcultural values is marriage is separate from childbearing, acquiring money is separate from work, and men prove masculinity through violence. He suggests solutions to crime where the certainty of getting caught and severe punishment. Just a little short and sharp about the policy. Then in your grid, you've got Farrington and West. Note there is a clear correlation between poor parenting and offending. Farrington and West, there's a clear correlation between poor and parenting and offending, and such families offer inadequate socialization of children. Such families offer inadequate socialization and a lack of informal social control. Of boys. It's inadequate socialization and a lack of informal social control, specifically of boys. Dennis and Erdos argue the increasing number of absent fathers, and decline in marriage is undermining the increasing number of absent fathers, and the decline in marriage is undermining the community's ability to control deviant young males. So that's all the AO1. This shows. So AO2, right realist explanations of crime. This shows right realist explanations of crime are useful as they can explain a rise in crime during the 1980s. They're useful as they can explain a rise in crime during the 1980s, despite society having more wealth. They can explain a rise in crime in the 1980s despite society having more wealth. This is because crime is the result of inadequate socialization. Is the result of inadequate socialization of children. Crime is the result of inadequate socialization of children. Due to an overgenerous welfare state and lone parents. Crime is the result of inadequate socialization of children due to an overgenerous welfare state and lone parent families, not the result of poverty. For the new right, crime is absolutely the result of inadequate socialization of children because you have an overgenerous welfare state, and it's the result of these lone parent families creating this underclass. It's inadequate socialization, not poverty. And they can, to some extent, explain that rise in crime during the 1980s. However, for my AO3, however, realist explanations are inaccurate. Realist explanations are inaccurate. For Cashmore, the phase of welfare dependency is 2 years on average. The phase of welfare dependency, which is the language they use, is 2 years on average. And for Jones, of the 10 million on welfare, which again is an American term, the 10 million on welfare, 9.2 million work. There is no evidence of an underclass. There is absolutely no evidence of an underclass, and therefore there is no evidence of an underclass. Therefore, their explanations are completely, or their explanations lack validity. The problem is the working poor. The evidence suggests their explanations lack all validity, that the actual statistics show we have a problem with the working poor in this country. Normally working class, working 2 or 3 jobs that do not pay enough. 9.2 million work, therefore their wages don't pay enough. Okay, so paragraph 2. Right realist explanations offer a discussion of different types of offenders. They offer discussions of different types of offenders. Clark argued there are 3 types of offenders. Clark argued there are 3 types of offenders: opportunistic, supplementary, and professional criminals. Professional criminals will always seek. Professional criminals will always strive to commit crime by criminal means. With these criminals, the burden with these criminals, the burden of crime should fall upon these criminals, the burden should fall upon active citizens target hardening or the preemptive identification. Target hardening, so the preemptive identification and targeting of likely pockets of crime and criminal groups will impact upon professional criminals, will impact upon professional criminals. No, it won't. It will impact upon, opportunistic and supplementary criminals. As it reduces the opportunity to commit crime. Just rejigged it from what's in your grid because I want to focus on the explanation if I can. Okay, they're on their own in that grid. AO2. This shows right realist explanations of crime. This shows that right realist, check the question, explanations of crime are useful as they consider there are different types of offenders. They're useful as they consider there's different types of offending. And reducing the opportunity to commit crime and reducing the opportunity to commit crime with target hardening and reducing an opportunity to commit crime with target hardening can ensure we prevent crime from taking place and reducing any victims. So they consider different types of offenders and they just offer us so that we can just reduce the opportunity to commit crime with target hardening. So we can ensure that we prevent crime from ever taking place and reducing any victims. Therefore, it offers practical solutions. Therefore, it offers practical solutions. However, Leah and Young, we will do this in our next grid. However, Leah and Young note this right realist explanation is not useful. Target hardening alienates and marginalizes the community. But really, they're not useful. Target hardening ultimately alienates and marginalizes the community. It's the community who helps solve crimes. Therefore, right realists' policies and explanations, therefore right realist policies and explanations only offer to focus, excellent, so useful. Target hardening alienates and marginalises community, and it's the community who helps solve crime. Therefore, right realist policies and explanation only offer to focus on soft crimes, only keep a focus on soft drug use rather than addressing crimes that are of real concern, such as hate crime and domestic violence. So what we're saying here, just to clarify, is that right realist explanations only serve to alienate and marginalise the community, and it's the community who helps solve crimes. Therefore, right realist policies and explanations keep a focus on soft drug use rather than addressing crimes that are of real concern, such as hate crime and domestic violence. I think it's a little bit too wordy, actually, folks. Let me delete that bit. Apologies. So, target hardening alienates and marginalises the community. It's the community who helps solve crimes. Therefore, right realist explanations only serve to target vulnerable groups. Right realist explanations only serve to target vulnerable groups and don't actually maybe just leave it there. So vulnerable groups. There we go. A little bit cleaner. Right. Paragraph 3. So, right realists, Clark and Coleman. Right realists, Clark and Coleman argue that human nature is self-interested and self-seeking. Right realists, Clark and Coleman argue that human nature is self-interested and self-seeking. So we have to deter crime by increasing the costs and reducing any benefits. They advocate harsh punishments, so both corporal, so physical punishment, and capital, so the death penalty. They advocate both corporal, physical punishments, and capital, so the death penalty. This right realist explanation is useful. So this right realist explanation is useful as it considers that everyone has the potential to commit crime. So they're useful because I suppose what they're arguing is everyone ultimately has the potential to commit crime, as human nature is selfish, and therefore we have to create a rational choice. They consider everyone can commit crime, and therefore we have to offer a rational choice. That corporal or capital punishment can act as a deterrent and reduce crime rates. I suppose they're considering everyone commits crime, and ultimately capital punishment can act as a deterrent. However, right realists